And we're back. And that caffeine. I'm like, whoa, just a little bit caffeinated right now. I actually put the rest of that back in the fridge because I can't drink all of that all in one sitting without it freaking me out. So we're going to make Karumeyaki. It's going to be our little snack that goes with our coffee. Karumeyaki is like a Japanese Dalgona or a Japanese meringue. What else has it been called? It's been called Japanese honeycomb toffee. And the only reason they just keep adding Japanese to the front of it is that the only difference between everybody else's honeycomb toffee, whether it's Dalgona or honeycomb in, like, say, England, is that the Japanese version uses egg whites. And I found, I tried making some Dalgona and some traditional European like honeycomb toffee, and I've also tried to make this, and this definitely puffs up bigger. So it kind of actually looks like a cookie rather than like brittle. But it is tricky. And I found a recipe on YouTube that Emmy, who is a Japanese chef that's been doing a lot of YouTube videos, that she did, where she made these in a microwave. So I tried giving these a shot, and it's still tricky. Even in her episode, it took, I think, 3 separate tries, and God knows how many tries off camera, right? But we're going to do a science experiment today. It's I'm actually going to be following her recipe and like one of her test variations from that episode. So I'm starting with turbinado sugar, which is a raw kind of, it's only been processed once at the sugar refinery. So it's, but it's not brown sugar. It's not like, it doesn't have molasses added to it. But it is a brownish kind of golden sugar that is dry, not sticky and wet. So 2 tablespoons, and I always make double because one of them usually messes up, if not both. So if I mess up, you get to see that too. So 2 tablespoons of turbinado sugar. And then we have 2 tablespoons of egg whites, no egg yolks, just the protein. And to that we're adding 2 tablespoons of baking soda. And we're not putting this in anything as like a big old glob. We're actually turning this into the secret magical powder or liquid or goo, I guess, that transforms these honeycomb toffees into Karumeyaki. So Karumeyaki is definitely a very old school Japanese wagashi that was developed kind of around the same time all these other wagashi became popular, where it's just a way to show how much sugar you can afford, because back then sugar was super expensive, not like it is now. And kind of like that Japanese candy I made a few episodes ago, kokoto, it's really just a block of sugar, which is kind of similar even in the States. Like right after the Depression, you had all these candy makers make candies that were just pure sugar with nothing else added. So I'm gonna mix this in really well. And the nice thing also about this candy is that because you're not making like a traditional hard candy, it's actually a softer, kind of caramelier sweet. It's so easy to clean up. So if you get a bunch of this like on the end of your chopstick or in a bowl, you just have to soak it in water, and the whole thing just kind of melts away like it does in your mouth. And I have a couple of parchment paper liners in here. You can use extra large cupcake cups if you'd like. Traditionally, this is done on a little copper ladle, kind of like a giant version of this, where they put the brown sugar in the spoon and put it right over the heat. And then once it starts caramelizing, then they add the magical egg white baking powder, baking soda concoction, and it just puffs up in front of you, and then you can kind of take it home. But you do have to kind of eat it pretty quickly because it completely crumbles away once it's dry. So once we have this ready to go, we're going to add just a tiny little bit. Let me just do an actual measurement. Let's do a teaspoon. Oops. Yeah. What does she say? I'm trying to remember. Oh yeah, it's half. So if it's 2 tablespoons of turbinado sugar, then it was 1 tablespoon of water. And then I tend to kind of swirl it around to make sure that all of the sugar gets wet. And then, so Emmy, in her trials on her episode, she ended up trying this 2 or I think 3 times. And the last version that worked was 3 tablespoons of sugar, a tablespoon and a half of water, and I think it was 3 minutes in the microwave. But that was in a paper cup, and so it's deeper. And the reason why she ended up adding more sugar is because she wanted to kind of really puff up and become tall. I'm looking for something that's kind of more, you know, the height is not as important for me as it is the fact that it'll puff up. And I also don't have any paper cups today. So we're going to try our first one. And what I found worked when I tried this yesterday or 2 days ago is it also depends on the strength of your microwave. So this is a 750 watt microwave. She was using a 600 watt microwave, which is why she needed to leave it in for 3 minutes. Mine is stronger, so I'm actually going to power the microwave down instead of just making it go. I'm actually going to set the power at 80% and do it for 1.5 minutes. And that seemed to work, so fingers crossed this will work this time too. So the other thing is I did actually pull it out at like 1:26, 27, like a couple of seconds to spare. So we're gonna try that again here, and hopefully this works. Otherwise you're gonna see me like skipping forward, and I'm gonna time lapse a whole section of me just failing at this. 5 seconds to go. So I'm gonna pull this out. 2 seconds to spare. It's totally bubbling away. I'm gonna pull this over here. And then just a little bit of this. See how that's already starting to puff up? You have to work really quickly. And see, that's what happens if things aren't working. And so I've made this with this recipe and it's worked out perfectly. And I've made it with this recipe where it's come out kind of flat. So I'm gonna pop another one in, and we will try this again. That's why I made 2. So fail. Number 2. Let's see. So obviously the professional karumeyaki makers don't make mistakes like this because they've been doing this for generations and it's a family business. I don't have that. So, and it's 5 seconds to go again. Pull it out at the 2-second mark and see if this will puff up. She could add just a and that's kind of a fail too. So I'll be right back. I'm going to set up another ramekin and we'll see if it works a third time being the charm. I guess that's the phrase, third time's the charm. Okay, so we're back. I've got another one ready to go. And so let's see if this one works. Luckily, it's one of these things that like, if it doesn't work, then you can just kind of toss it and hopefully you don't go through a lot of sugar testing it out. Fingers crossed. It's kind of like a fun activity if you don't mind like making mistakes and, you know, and seeing what you can do to kind of fix it. But look, we've already had 2 and they are vastly different, right? And they're both kind of a fail. This is a little bit more of a fail than this one. This one might be kind of salvageable, maybe. Got a minute left to go. I found that Dalgona is easier to make, but Karumeyaki is lighter and fluffier than Dalgona. And I don't know. I like Dalgona. It's good, but Karumeyaki definitely has a warm spot in my heart. Seconds left. 5, 4, 3, 2. Okay, so I'm gonna take this out. Let's see. There's been some spillage on this one. Ooh. Oh, but this looks good. Maybe. You kind of have to keep mixing it and then you let it go. It's supposed to puff up. It's trying really hard. We may have to do one more to get where we need to go. Yeah, okay, so one more. I have this like little row of fails, but each one is a little bit different, which, you know, it's a good lesson. And I have one more, and if this doesn't work, we'll keep trying. I need just a little bit more sugar to this mixture. We'll see how this one does. Cleaned up. Or that works too. This is one of those things that you can actually, there's some companies that make them, you can buy them in the store, but they're always kind of crumbly in the bag. Traditionally, it's one of those things you kind of go and get like when you go to temple, go to our shrines, because there's usually like a Karumeyaki guy at the shrine that we can buy this from. And it's a very old school Edo period sweet. So I'm hoping that this works again. Or works this time, like it did a couple of days ago when I was finally able to make it work. And we've got about 10 seconds left. Just gonna go ahead and take this out. See if this one works. Can only hope. Look at that, it's starting to puff up. Look, 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 look. Puff, 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 puff. Amazing. So happy. And then we have to kind of let this cool. So, was not the fourth time, was not the third time is the charm, it was fourth time is the charm today. Just a little tiny bit, but still drying is making these like kind of swooshy sounds, but look, you can see. So, yeah, that came out so great. And so look, same exact ingredients. Microwaves are finicky. The world is finicky. Nothing is ever. This is a life lesson. Nothing ever happens perfectly. Every once in a while you get something amazing, and you can then, this is why I actually use it with the liners as opposed to doing it right in the dish, because then you can take it out and you can open it. And it's literally the most perfect Karumeyaki. It's actually better than the ones I made a couple of days ago, because it's still soft. It was still warm. It's got little bits of like that melted caramel. It's all over it on the bottom. And that adds this like additional flavor, additional texture. So, Karumeyaki is a wonderful Japanese wagashi. Very difficult to make at home. Definitely a lesson in why these wagashi practitioners are generations old, with like information passed down from family to family to family. Some of there's some negative things happening in Japan right now with, you know, people not wanting to have kids, and so because and they've been doing that has kind of been a trend in Japan for a couple of decades now. So there are unfortunately a lot of very old school Japanese businesses and trades that are closing down because they don't have anybody to take up the business after them. So in a weird way, I kind of like the fact that I can figure out how difficult these wagashi actually are and see if there's something I can do to have them at home, because some of these traditions are going away. So let me show you what this looks like when you actually open it up. Oh my gosh, the most perfect. Seriously, this is better than the ones I made a couple of days ago. And it's still warm, but ooh, probably a little too hot to hold it from the bottom. But if you chopstick, dry it off. See how crumbly that sounds just putting the chopstick in? And it's this hot, so hot. Ooh, there we go. This crumbly, definitely don't want to eat it where you have to kind of keep clean. It's good to eat outdoors, which is why they are always available at shrines. But look, these amazing honeycomb pieces that just literally crumble in your hands, but also melt in your mouth. So fantastic. But also, it's basically pure sugar. It's a sugar candy. So everything in moderation, as they say. I made a bunch of these, but luckily one worked. And that is what I'll be having with my Dalgona coffee later today. In fact, a lot of places you can actually sprinkle these on top because much like Dalgona and Karumeyaki, they melt. So if you just put them right on top of your coffee or your latte or have them on the side, it will melt just right into your drink. So. Kind of slightly burnt, slightly caramely taste. It's so old school. I remember eating these when I was a kid. Well, half is enough for me for right now. I'm gonna save the rest of it to have with my Dalgona coffee in a couple of hours once my caffeine level has kind of laid down. So I am going to clean all this up because there's sugar everywhere, but the house smells like caramel, which is one of my favorite smells. That and butterscotch and vanilla. So the house smells great. I'm gonna go and clean all this up and then sit down and finish some more of my Dalgona coffee and see if I can hear colors again. I'll talk to you guys again later, and I'll see you online. Bye.